Napoleon Bonaparte came to power in 1799. But by 1814, Napoleon started collapsing. He started doing what? Collapsing. So we need to understand the key reasons that led to the downfall of Napoleon Bonaparte. We are realizing that Napoleon pressed a wrong button. He insisted on defeating a country called Britain. So finally, we are seeing Britain allying with countries and Napoleon had to collapse. As they say, officials go, officers remain. A man who was so great, finally he collapsed. As they say, what goes round comes round. A man who criticized King Louis XVI, also he was criticized. So the year 1814, Napoleon started collapsing. He made the tactical mistakes, like in the Moscow campaign. So we are like saying, Napoleon, at the Battle of Waterloo, many of his soldiers were killed. But for him, as a great star, he managed to survive. When he survived, they asked him, how comes that you have managed to survive? A man said, when a man seeks death, he cannot find. When a man seeks death, he cannot find it. Bullets were everywhere, behind and in front, but there was no bullet for me. That is Napoleon Bonaparte. This meant that they brought bullets for other people, but they did not bring bullets for Napoleon Bonaparte. So let us look at his downfall. Let us look at his what? Downfall. We are like saying today, Napoleon is excessive or overwhelming ambition led to his downfall. This ambition was demonstrated by the creation of a very large empire over Europe, which included countries like Spain, Belgium, as well as the Italian states and German states, among others. So Napoleon is excessive ambition. We are like saying today, Napoleon was excessively ambitious. He wanted to fulfill so many things in a small period of time. It is this that made him to attack so many countries. When Napoleon attacked so many countries, time came, these countries rose up against him. And this explains his collapse and downfall. The year 1814. A great man in Napoleon started collapsing. So his excessive what? Ambition. It is not bad to be ambitious, but Napoleon was over what? Ambitious. Over ambitious. Another key reason, the effects of the continental system led to the downfall of Napoleon. This system meant to destroy the commercial trade of a country called Britain. When Napoleon in the Berlin Decree and Milan Decrees, he refused the countries to trade with Britain. After Napoleon failing to defeat Britain militarily, he designed an economic strategy where he refused the countries to trade with Britain. His intention, he wanted Britain to kneel before him. Because however much Britain was so great in terms of producing goods, but it needed customers. So by this, Napoleon declared the continental system, and he refused the countries to trade with Britain because he wanted Britain to kneel before what? Before him. So by this time, we are like saying, people became unemployed, the traders were crying since they were depending on a country called Britain. The question is, how were they going to get goods? Some strategic traders started smuggling goods from Britain because they needed to survive. Even Napoleon himself started smuggling goods from Britain. So we are like saying today, the continental system made Napoleon to become very unpopular. Even those who were supporting him had to turn against him. So we are saying the continental system led to the downfall of Napoleon Bonaparte. Another key reason, first, let me first, I will answer that. The imprisonment of the what? Of the Pope. We are like saying today, the imprisonment of Pope Pius VII. We are like saying, the Papal States continue to trade with what? With Britain. As the Papal States continue to trade with Britain, it is this that led to the downfall of Napoleon Bonaparte. I can say that the Pope Pius VII continued trading with Britain. Napoleon wounded the Pope. He told the Pope, don't trade with Britain. But a man continued to trade with what? Britain. As he continued to trade with Britain, it is this that explains the downfall of Napoleon Bonaparte. So I can say the imprisonment of the Pope led to the downfall of Napoleon. When he imprisoned the Pope, the Catholic Church in France rose up against him. The Catholic Church in Europe rose up against him. So the imprisonment of the Pope made Napoleon to become unpopular. It remained a question of time for Napoleon to collapse, which time came around 1814. A great star among all stars finally collapsed. That is Napoleon Bonaparte. Peninsular War of 1808 to 1813. We believe by this time that Portugal continued to trade with what? With Britain. When Portugal continued to trade with Britain, problems arose. In other words, Napoleon declared war on Portugal. You remember he said in the Berlin Decree and Milan Decrees, you trade with Britain, I attack you. So when Portugal continued to trade with Britain, a man declared war on Portugal. But he had to pass via Spain to attack what? Portugal. By this time, he had managed at first to try to defeat the Portuguese. But when he was moving from Portugal back to France, when he was like passing in Spain, he realized that the king of Spain is King Charles. He removed and he overthrew King Charles and he put his brother Joseph Bonaparte. This annoyed the Spaniards. What they did, they allied with Portugal to fight Napoleon. A man who had tried to succeed finally was defeated in the Peninsular War. At home, a man became so unpopular. They were rising up against him for participating in unnecessary wars. This explains Napoleon's what? Downfall. A great star, Napoleon, finally had to collapse. The Moscow campaign of 1812. What happened in Moscow? It is said Russia continued to trade with Britain. Napoleon told Tsar Alexander I, don't trade with what? With Britain. But what happened? A man continued to trade with Britain. Napoleon declared war on Russia in Moscow, the Moscow campaign. He organized around over 600,000 soldiers to go and attack Moscow in Russia. I can tell you, a man even recruited younger boys of 10 to 11 years to fight in Moscow. What happened in the Moscow campaign? The Russians heard that Napoleon is coming. They deserted the city. They poisoned the wells and they took all the food. Napoleon's soldiers came, they had nothing to eat. They started drinking water, forgetting that there was poison. Those who survived, many of them even died of winter. Those who survived tried to pass via river Neima to escape. They had to fall in the river. I can tell you, a man who went with over 600,000 soldiers, he had to go back with around 20,000 soldiers. By this time, at home, the parents of the children he recruited in the army were demanding for their children. I can tell you, by this time, a man became unpopular. A popular man in Napoleon became unpopular. A man who said everything is possible. Only the word impossible was written by fools in the books of dictionary was declining. Napoleon Bonaparte. So Napoleon made the greatest blunder in the Moscow campaign, and this led to his collapse and downfall. Then, the increasing war fronts led to the downfall of Napoleon. Napoleon was fighting so many wars in a small period of time. So it was a question of the increasing war fronts that led to the downfall of Napoleon. However much he was very great. Because one time Nelson, a British commander, said that one Napoleon was equivalent to 40,000 soldiers. But at this time, a man was fighting so many what? Wars. So the increasing war fronts led to the downfall of Napoleon Bonaparte. A man who was so great, a man who was supposed to defeat his enemies. He was fighting so many wars in a small period of time. This meant many of his soldiers had to die. He lost so many military equipments. Time came, he had to collapse because he could not survive. Then the military exhaustion of the French soldiers. It is said, because of the endless wars Napoleon was fighting, it is said he was like becoming exhausted in terms of losing soldiers. Moscow campaign, Peninsula, the man was losing soldiers. The question is, how was he going to survive without soldiers? So it is